Hello and welcome to Writing America, Pages and People. If you're here to learn about an American author and some of their works, then you're in the right place. My name is Rachel Rigolino, and I'm an instructor in the English department at the State University of New York at New Paltz. So come on, we'll watch this video and leave some comments below. Susan Glaspell was a Pulitzer Prize winning dramatist and best-selling author who wrote 14 plays, 9 novels, and over 50 short stories, essays, and articles. Now, in this lecture, I will focus on Glaspell's role as a prominent playwright and a founding figure of modern American drama in the 1910s and 1920s. Alongside Eugene O'Neill, she really stood out as one of the, quote, little theater movement's most influential playwrights. Glaspell's contributions to American drama really revolve around her powerful portrayals of women's psychological oppression. Her work has also delved into the exploration of American identity and the preservation of American idealism. Born in 1876 in Davenport, Iowa, Susan Glaspell took pride in her Midwestern roots and drew inspiration from her heritage in her plays and in her fiction. After graduating from high school, Glaspell briefly worked as a reporter for the Davenport Morning Republican. She then attended Drake University from 1895 to 1899, where she served as the literary editor for the college newspaper. Then in 1896, she worked as the society editor for the Davenport Weekly Outlook, where she published her first short story entitled Tom and Tozer. Glaspell joined the Des Moines Daily News as a state house and legislative reporter, while also writing news and keeping a column for the same publication. Literary historians believe that these clips that are on the screen about the case of Margaret Hosack, who was arrested for killing her husband, were written by Glaspell, although there's no byline, which is not really unusual, of course. This is the case she drew upon when writing her play, Trifles. So let's return to her biography. Despite her success in newspaper writing, Glaspell made a definitive shift, really from journalism to freelance fiction. By about 1901, she continued to publish her works in various popular magazines and journals. Now, in 1903, she briefly attended the University of Chicago, but then stopped her graduate studies to return to Davenport, where she really thrived as a writer. She achieved success with her first novel, The Glory of the Conquered, The Story of a Great Love, in 1909, followed by the more realistic and perhaps less sentimental, but also less popular novel, The Visioning, in 1911. Glaspell was also a great short story writer, and her public really loved her stories with their blend of realism and also political critique. Her best short works were compiled in a well-selling collection which was published in 1912. After marrying, Glaspell and her husband, the socialist writer George Cram Cook, lived in Provincetown, Massachusetts during the summer and Greenwich Village for the rest of the year. Eventually, though, they did move to Greece in 1922. Now, while Glaspell originally had no interest in playwriting, she was encouraged by both her husband and Eugene O'Neill, and she wrote her best-known work, Trifles, in 1916, drawing inspiration from that murder case she had reported on in Des Moines. The play explores gender differences and strife as a group of men fail to recognize crucial clues found by the women accompanying them during the investigation of a farmer's murder. Trifles immediately became a popular piece in repertory theaters and also in anthologies. And here you can see a photograph from the original production. And a year later, in 1917, Glaspell wrote a short story version of Trifles, which she called A Jury of Her Peers. After the success of Trifles, Glaspell really gained some confidence in her abilities as a playwright and wrote several more one-act plays in rapid succession. Although none of them matched the mastery of Trifles, each play explored themes that would become central to her full-length works. Now, for example, The People, and again, this is a kind of comedic piece. There's a hint of comedy there in these pieces. The People depicts the office of a radical journal on the verge of closing due to financial difficulties, but also due to the editor's loss of faith in its philosophy. While Close the Book is a comedic play that tackles radical themes such as free love and radical politics. They do sound like heavy themes, but she treats them with a light touch. And a departure from the lighter tone of her previous work, though, Glaspell's The Outside is a more serious drama, pretty experimental. Set in an abandoned lifeguard station on Cape Cod, the play follows Mrs. Patrick, an embittered abandoned wife, and Allie Mayo, a grieving widow, rendered almost mute by intense sorrow. The play's stark setting, philosophical content, and complex language between the women showcase Glaspell's artistic development. Throughout all of these plays, Glaspell demonstrated her ability to tackle profound themes while experimenting with language and dramatic techniques. Despite varying critical responses, some people loved these plays, some people were a little harsh about them, her dedication to exploring social and philosophical issues is something that most literary scholars celebrate. Glaspell continued to contribute to the American theater throughout the 1930s, and in fact, she won the Pulitzer Prize for Allison's House, a 3-act play based very loosely, actually it was inspired by Emily Dickinson, and that play appeared in 1930. However, many critics argue that Glaspell's peak in her dramatic career occurred in the early 1920s, and by the mid-30s her dramatic career had effectively ended. In the latter part of her life, Glaspell's main accomplishments were her novels, including The Morning is Near Us, which was published in 1940, Norma Ash in 1942, and Judd Rankin's Daughter in 1945. Glaspell died in 1948, I think due to pneumonia, and for a while she kind of dropped off the radar a little bit of the reading public. But thanks to scholars in the 1970s who, quote-unquote, rediscovered Susan Glaspell, her works Trifles and also A Jury of Her Peers are both now widely anthologized. And of course, Trifles is still being produced. Then in 2003, the International Susan Glaspell Society was founded, and their mission is to recognize her achievements and also to promote wider productions of her other plays as well.